Paul Atreides stands on the lip of a sand dune, wind cutting across his face, seeing futures like bad weather reports he can't stop. He's quieter now than the boy who left Caladan. There's a weight in him that's equal parts destiny and exhaustion. If you liked the slow burn from the first movie, this one picks up the heat and never quite lets go. After the shattering events that cost House Atreides their hold on Arrakis, Paul and his mother, Lady Jessica, have sunk into the desert and into the people who know the planet best, the Fremen. At first, it's survival, food, water discipline, learning how to ride a sandworm without becoming worm food. But what begins as a desperate refuge becomes the nerve center of a larger plan. Paul isn't just trying to live, he's trying to become a legend, or at least to make legend into something useful. He trains, he fights, he studies the visions that keep coming, glimpses of triumph and of a galaxy bleeding with a jihad carried out in his name. He doesn't want the massacre of countless worlds, but he also understands power differently now, as leverage, as a language everyone else is forced to speak. Chani is at his side. She's not a sidekick, she's a fighter, a guide, and the person who keeps Paul anchored when the world tilts toward prophecy. Their connection feels immediate and raw, full of the kind of intimacy that's grown from watching each other survive for months in the open desert. She challenges him, teases him, and when he's tempted to float off into messianic monologues, she pulls him back to a practical plan. That combination, Paul's vision and Chani's groundedness, becomes the engine driving the Fremen's transformation from guerrilla tribes to a disciplined force capable of reshaping politics across the cosmos. At the same time, back in the palaces of the Imperium, things are as ugly as they were in the first part. The Harkonnens, who once ruled Arrakis with a mixture of cruelty and grotesque indulgence, are trying to reassert control, but their hold is shaky. Baron Harkonnen is a looming presence, gross in the way power often is, all indulgence and strategy, and his nephew, Fade Routha, is being groomed as a showman and a true predator. If the Baron's rule is old-school brute force, Fade is the modern face of it, charming in public, lethal in private. He's a clear foil to Paul, youth versus youth, each with different visions of how to seize and wield power. Then there's the Emperor, and his politics run cold. He's a man who's used to controlling the narrative by crushing threats before they can grow. The Imperium's reaction to Paul is not subtle. If Paul looks like a genuine contender for influence over the spice, over Arrakis, then the Emperor and the great houses are ready to crush him. But that's the problem. Crushing Paul means provoking a people who have spent generations learning to make the desert bite back. Over months, Paul and Jessica work inside Fremenkind. Jessica herself was trained in the ways of the Bene Gesserit, a sisterhood who have their own dark long game, becomes a leader among the Fremen in her own right. Her position is complicated. As a mother teaching a rising prophet, she's invested in Paul's success and cautious about what that success costs. The Bene Gesserit sisters have always used marriage, prophecy, and genetics like tools. Jessica's torn between loyalty to the sisterhood's methods and the immediate needs of her son and the Fremen. That tension plays quietly but significantly throughout their decisions. A major thread in the story is Paul's moral battle with the idea of fate. His prescience offers him a map of potential futures, and what is most terrifying isn't winning, it's the knowledge of what winning might require. He sees the spectacle of a galactic holy war spurred in his name. The film leans on this as the emotional engine. Paul is not a hero who wants glory. He's a man trying to avoid becoming a martyr for a violent religion, while also realizing that the only path to ending Harkonnen rule and imperial manipulation might be to become exactly the kind of symbol that can mobilize millions. Tactically, Paul and the Fremen begin to transform Arrakis. They sabotage spice harvesting operations. They ambush Harkonnen convoys. They learn to use the environment, gigantic, frightening, magnificent sandworms, to their advantage. The film spends generous time on the logistics of this rebellion, and it's satisfying. The Fremen are not mystical characters, but an organized force, skilled and cunning, using guerrilla tactics that gradually escalate to an unstoppable campaign. We see raids, armored skirmishes, daring worm rides that look like something out of a myth reborn, all choreographed with brutal clarity. Villain forces underestimate them early on, and that proves fatal. Of course, the political chessboard matters too. The Emperor can't ignore a destabilized Arrakis forever. High-stakes meetings, secret alliances, and betrayals proliferate off-screen and on. The film smartly balances intimate, human moments with the kind of cold-blooded political maneuvering that shakes empires. Paul knows raw victory. He has force, but he also knows legitimacy matters in the long term. That's where the Princess Irulan and the Emperor's machinations come in. Politics will try to tame Paul by knitting him into the existing order, while the barons prefer outright annihilation or puppetry. The central confrontations are handled with a steady build. There's a notable focus on training and rites of passage. Paul's fame grows within Fremenkind and spreads outward. Some of the Fremen treat him like a prophesied figure. Others treat him like an outsider whose pedigree will always be suspect. He earns trust through strategy and sacrifice. He participates in raids, he leads from the front, and he demonstrates competence in ways that are impossible to fake. In a society that honors survival skill and leadership, these are the currencies that matter. The movie doesn't shy away from the price of insurgency. We watch casualties mount, and the film constantly reminds viewers that Paul's victory will not be cost-free. Friends and fighters fall, and the emotional toll lands with enough specificity that you can't shrug and call everything poetic. Paul faces moments where he has to choose between saving a comrade or furthering a tactical goal. Those moments reveal his human fragility. The movie lets us feel his guilt, his doubt, and sometimes his anger. He's not a perfect icon, and that makes the more mythic elements land harder. When the decisive phases begin, the film escalates its set pieces without losing the intimate stakes. Massive clashes unfold, sandstorms, aerial assaults, and enormous set-piece moments where worms are weaponized in ways that feel both inventive and devastating. There's a growing chorus of allies, but also sharper, more personal conflicts. One of the most compelling threads is the face-off with Fade Raufa. He's introduced as a provocateur and challenger, someone who might be what Paul could have been under a different upbringing, charismatic, ruthless, and trained to be an instrument of power. Their confrontations are both physical and philosophical. They represent two divergent answers to the same question: what do you become when you inherit a broken world? The film culminates in an intense confrontation at Arrakis. Paul's forces move against the Harkonnen stronghold, bolstered by broader Fremen support. The battle choreography here is dense, stealth, and spectacle, small personal fights embedded inside an immense military sweep. Paul directly confronts the machinery of imperial power, not merely claiming a throne, but dismantling the systems that made the Harkonnens and the Emperor arrogant enough to commit atrocities. The sequences balance visceral combat with strategic cunning. Paul uses both. There's also the courtroom-style reckoning that only large political cinema can stage. The Emperor is forced to face the consequences of his miscalculations, and Paul plays politics with the same precision he uses on the battlefield. He understands that destroying the Emperor is not the same as reforming the system. He leverages his control over the spice, the element every faction needs, into unparalleled political capital. It's a cold, effective move. Control the resource, and you control the bargaining table. The film makes this feel inevitable in a way that's satisfying, but also sobering. This victory is less about glory and more about leverage. Romantically and personally, the film doesn't treat Paul as immune to human tenderness. His relationship with Chani deepens amid chaos. Those moments of quiet, two people sharing a scrap of food or a private joke in a storm-racked cave, work as emotional anchors. They remind us why Paul is fighting beyond duty or prophecy, for the right to a life, messy and imperfect, with people he loves. The script manages to make these domestic scenes feel consequential because they form the emotional logic behind Paul's later decisions. There's also the question of legacy and compromise. In the end, Paul secures a victory that rearranges power in the Imperium, but it's not a simple triumph. He must accept compromises, including taking political steps that may feel morally ambiguous to consolidate peace and prevent an all-out galactic war that would kill millions. It's an uneasy bargain. He steps into power, but doesn't simply become the tyrant he could have been. He understands that the machinery of empire requires symbolic gesture, and marriage, titles, and ceremonial dominance can be instruments to steer outcomes. There's a bittersweetness to that calculus, and the film doesn't pretend it's pretty. The film also gives supporting characters room to breathe.
Stilgar, the Fremen leader, is at once a mentor, a brutal realist, and a steady moral presence. He provides the cultural weight of Fremenkind and the pragmatism necessary to turn